Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and we're here to talk about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 4, or as it's called by Disney, Chapter 12, The Siege. The Mandalorian and the child head to Navarro for repairs for the Razor Crest after the Mon Calamari repairs proved inadequate. They reunite with Greef Karga and Cara Dune, who have since turned the planet around. Cara has assumed the position of Marshal. Greef has taken on the role of Magistrate. In return for the repairs, the Mandalorian agrees to help destroy an old Imperial base on the other side of the planet. So that's the basic setup for this episode, and that's what generally happens, but let's get into my particular notes on the episode. So as the episode opens, the Razor Crest is going along at a rather, hindered pace, and the Mandalorian has put the child, aka Baby Yoda, down some kind of a shaft or through some kind of a shaft on board the ship where, a bunch of wires and components are housed in the hopes that he can instruct the child to rearrange some wires. And he's trying to instruct him to do this. And of course, hilarity ensues, as does, I have to say, a whole bunch of cuteness. I make note of the cuteness factor somewhat begrudgingly, not because I'm, trying to be completely immune to cute, but I am a dude and I am 51 years old next week. So, you kind of don't want to turn into a puddle on the floor when you see Baby Yoda, but the thing is so darn cute. I just can't get over it. I wouldn't be surprised if we learned that Baby Groot from the MCU has a hit out on this guy, because the cuteness is over the top. So the next thing we see is a scene on Navarro where a bunch of members of the Aqualish species, which are the same species as Walrus Man from the original Star Wars, are up to no good, processing some stolen goods. And Cara Dune shows up and kicks their butts and decides to take back the property that they stole to give it to the rightful owners. And she ends up adopting a little squirrel-like thing. But I thought it was interesting that they brought the Aqualish people into the episode. So the Mandalorian lands, on the planet. He's greeted by Greef, played by Carl Weathers, who, by the way, directed the episode, and Cara, and he explains that his ship is in bad need of repairs, to which Greef sees to immediately. And, then they take the Baby Yoda and drop him off at a school, and there's a cute little scene there, which I thought dragged on a little bit. Again, the character's cute and everything, but do we have to put these gratuitous cuteness scenes in there? It doesn't add to the story, I don't think. So I don't know why they do. I mean, I know why they do that, but I'm not sure they should be doing it. And then the Mandalorian goes into a conversation with Greef and Cara, and one of the Mandalorian's former bounty targets, who I guess has reformed himself, and they talk about how the planet has really turned around, and Cara and Greef have done a good job at doing that, but there's just this one old, barely occupied Imperial base on the other side of the planet that is just drawing the wrong element or causing a little bit of trouble for us. And if we could just get rid of that base, things would go from being like a B++ to an A around here in terms of law and order and everything being, on the up and up and calm and serene. And so they're trying to get the Mandalorian to go along and help them, and he's reluctant. But yet again, he gets dragged into one of these missions where he's helping someone in exchange for, in this case, the repairs on his ship, I guess. In the first episode, it was in exchange for Boba Fett's armor. So I don't know, it's sort of a tired premise, where every week he shows up and he gets dragged into something. It's kind of like Have Gun Will Travel, the kind of thing. Like he's, a Western. It's like a Western, which is good. And, Have Gun Will Travel is one of those Westerns where the main character was like a mercenary, basically. He was a for hire individual who would go and help with little problems. And that's kind of like what the Mandalorian is sort of doing, although he's not put himself out for hire that way. It just seems to end up that he gets involved in these situations where he's behaving in the same way as a sort of mercenary, sort of in a backdoor way, where he's in need of something and he gets dragged into something to help out. Also, he helps out because he has a sense of duty, and also because these people are his friends, I guess. But it's just whatever the circumstances is, one way or another, every week he gets dragged into some mission that he wasn't intending to go on while he's trying to pursue his own mission of getting the child to, the Jedi. So I don't know. I don't suppose there's much else they could do. It's a little repetitive. But you can overlook it because they do such a great job with the show, and the missions are pretty cool, especially in this episode, which we're going to get to. But yeah, it's the same thing this week as the week before. So they get to the base with the help of the guy who was once the Mandalorian's bounty target, or a target for some other reason. I've forgotten his name. I'm going to have to put it up with this picture over there. He's kind of the comic relief of the episode. They take his land speeder and they head out to this base. And, he's kind of like reluctant to keep going because it's in a bad area where I guess there's an ebb and flow of lava into the area. And so the base kind of keeps it under control, I guess. And so it's safe to pass there, but like not always necessarily. I don't know. But anyway, they get there and he's reluctant to go in, but he agrees to go in because Grief keeps agreeing to take years off his sentence, which I guess was what he was serving by, working in the office there with Grief, which is where they end up having the conversation that I talked about before. Anyway, they end up inside the base and they're walking around. They're trying to get to, I guess, a generator to shut it off so that the place will blow up when the lava is no longer under control. Of course, this is very reminiscent of the mission on the Death Star in A New Hope, but what are you going to do? So they, go about doing that. And of course they realize, hey, there's more here than just a skeleton crew. This is like a full, a full-on up and running operation here. They're up to something. So of course they encounter all kinds of stormtrooper entanglements, as it were, on the way to shut off this generator thing or whatever it is. During this whole part of the episode where they're running around the halls trying to get to where they're going, you can hear the various stormtroopers talking on their comms, and one of them says TK-147, and then follows that with some other discussion or whatever. And that, of course, harkened back to episode 4, A New Hope, where, the Death Star military guy says, TK-421, why aren't you at your post? TK-421, please respond, or whatever it is. And of course, it's because Han or Luke are actually in the costume and they have to pretend like their comms aren't working. Now, this is where the episode gets interesting. They get to a part of the base where they can clearly see that the Empire is up to something. They've got these specimens in these person-sized test tube containers. They're clearly running experiments, and they uncover a recording that is a few weeks old, I guess, or a couple months old, that is addressed to Moff Gideon, who they think is deceased, but of course isn't. And it talks about how they're trying to get a hold of the asset, and how they have, depleted their blood supply that they, I guess, took from it previously or took from a different one. I wasn't really clear on that. And that they need more. So this is why they're trying to get a hold of the child. And when they're talking about, blood or trying to get a hold of the blood, we run out of the supply of blood that we had from the subject. I'm thinking, uh-oh, they are trying to create force sensitive beings. They're working with their blood to try and, transfer a high metachlorian count, or to create a higher metachlorian count in their test subjects so that they can create force beings. And sure enough, the recording starts to talk about an M count in the blood, and I knew right then there couldn't be anything other than midichlorians. So, that confirmed it. So that's a heck of a revelation. That sort of explains why they're looking for the child. And you had to know it was something like that, something to do with his force sensitivity. But wow, we didn't know it was, that. And that's pretty huge. What's interesting is I don't think the gang has figured that part out yet, but the audience knows what an M count refers to. So yeah, so that's what's going on, and that's pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy. But anyway, of course they get caught up with, and on their way out of the base after they have disabled the the field, and the base is going to blow. They've already wasted some time standing around looking at this recording and so forth, because they had already set the thing up to explode. So they're on their way out when, of course, they get chased. And one of the lines that the stormtroopers says is, "There they are, blast them!" And that's kind of, again, another throwback to A New Hope. Because in A New Hope, the stormtroopers are chasing Han and Luke and Leia. And one of them says, "It's them, blast them." So, yeah, that was a deliberate callback, I think, to that. So the action kind of picks up here because our trusty crew, ragtag such as it is, can't get. They're being fired upon. The only way they have out of the situation is to get onto what looks like a troop or a cargo transport vehicle that travels on land. It doesn't fly, and it reminded me of the troop transport toy that came out when the first three movies were in theaters in the late 70s, early 80s, the troop transport, which I had as a kid, and I thought it was so cool, because you could put a couple of stormtroopers or whoever in like these three little side pockets that were made to fit, the action figures. I think you could put one or two in the driver's seat and passenger seat, and it had a gun turret on the top, and when you pushed, there were like 4 buttons on the top of it, you could push it down and it would say things. I don't remember what it used to say, but that was a pretty cool toy. I used that a lot. I wonder if I could find the commercial and the old TV commercial for that and put it up.
It's the Star Wars Imperial Troop Transporter that you put together. Batteries not included. Stormtrooper sold separately.
What's that?
It's my troop transporter. It makes 5 more sounds, too.
Are you too bad, are you?
There's the laser cannon, stun gun, and stormtrooper.
Did he say that?
Oh, Dad.
Star Wars Imperial Troop Transporter. Stormtrooper sold separately. New from Kenner.
Anyway, the vehicle is kind of covered by a cloak, so you can't really see most of it as they're first getting on it. But once they get underway and and in fact drop quite a ways to the surface from this high ledge that they're on, where they come out of the base, and they land on, they crush the guy's land speeder, which was kind of funny. But then they take off, and of course the stormtroopers give chase on speeder bikes, like the ones seen in Return of the Jedi, and Greef mans the turret, which I knew was going to end up happening. They were going to end up using this turret. I just knew it was there because, it reminded me of this old toy, and there was a turret on it. Anyway, he's manning the turret, and he's shooting these speeders down. And then on top of that, these TIE fighters take off from, I guess, the base. And the really cool ones where the wings are collapsible and expandable. It's pretty cool. Anyway, these TIE fighters take off. They're giving chase. And of course, it's down a canyon, right? The troop transport thing or vehicle, whatever it is that they're on, is getting away from them by, riding down this narrow canyon that's extremely reminiscent of the Death Star, the artificial canyon on the Death Star that the X-wings and TIE fighters battle in, while the X-wings are trying to blow up the Death Star in both A New Hope and I guess Return of the Jedi, right? But anyway, or did they do that in Return of the Jedi? I don't remember. Anyway, they did it in A New Hope, and it's very reminiscent of that, which is both cool and kind of makes you yawn at the same time. Like, really? We've seen this before? I mean, it's great. It's an Easter egg. It's a callback. It's a member berry. But really? You couldn't have just had it be an open landscape? Anyway. They end up getting away because Mando, who had flown off in his rocket pack, I should have mentioned that, huh? That he wasn't with them. Mando wasn't with them. It was just Grief and Kara and the other guy. And so Mando, who has flown off with his jetpack, shows up in the Razor Crest, which has now been repaired, and he blasts the heck out of the TIE fighters, and makes off on his way after thanking Grief and Kara for their help with the repairs, and after they thank him for helping with the base, which of course blows up, and the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, the child, are on the road again. Cut to Moff Gideon, wherever he's located, and one of his people is talking to him about how, yes, we placed the tracker, on the ship, and we're going to be able to track them now, which again is a callback to like The Empire Strikes Back, which it's another sort of retreaded plot element, but this is a plot element that's used in all kinds of movies and stories, including, Earth-based ones, spy films and so forth. But now he's tracking them, and there's a reveal at the very end where it shows that he has been sort of getting a whole force of what looks like shadow troopers ready for whatever battle or whatever mission he's gonna send them on in his pursuit of whatever his ultimate goal is, which one assumes is reconstituting the empire, or at least gaining control locally for himself over a region of the galaxy. So that was pretty cool, because you haven't seen that before that I remember, like a legion of shadow troopers. So a lot of overall story progress made in this episode. I'm definitely looking forward to next week. This show is just really good. It's not perfect, but it's an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10 for sure, which not all sci-fi shows currently being produced can say about themselves. But I give this episode 4 out of 5 stars, or maybe a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's a really good episode. Carl Weathers did an excellent job directing, and it's just a great episode. And I'm looking forward to next week. Another gripe I have is, I mentioned in my last episode about The Mandalorian, or actually Tom mentioned it, but I echoed the sentiment. These episodes are kind of short, 35, 40 minutes. I don't know. I mean, they could pad them out, and then each episode would maybe drag a little bit. So then we'd be complaining about that. I guess what I don't know is why they can't write, 55, 56-minute stories that don't drag. I don't know. Anyway, next week there'll be another episode, and I will be here to give my review of that. Until then, my friends, peace and long life.